Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this Thursday night, January 5th in-depth ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. So at the end of this video, we're going to be covering the new long-range data that was just released today by the European model. We'll even take a quick look out there through spring and summer, especially at the precipitation side of things. But I want to start you off with what winter's given us so far. So this goes back to December 1st up until this morning and looks at precipitation ranks by climate district. And overall, we can see there are several places, it's really stretching from California through Nevada into Utah and then eventually out into the plains that have been extremely wet to start this winter. Our driest spots are still a few in the eastern Corn Belt, some down here, parts of North Carolina down to Florida. And then, but this region just had some big storms roll through here yesterday. So a lot of these numbers may not really reflect the recent precipitation, but where we've really seen a lot of this miss has been down here in the southern plains. This has been a large hole that's been very difficult to fill given the trajectory of the jet stream we've seen so far during this cold season. NASA did get their new maps updated after the start of the new year, so I want to show you the latest soil moisture data. And you might be looking at this saying, wow, that looks very dry for what we have. But remember, this goes down to 16 inches. So some of the recent rainfall that's in through here may not have kind of gotten down that deep just yet. And the dryness that you see in this area, got to remember, a lot of this has a lot of snow sitting on top of it, so that snow has to still melt to get down into that. And I was looking at it today on satellite. It's kind of neat to watch the sunrise. So here's our first low that's kind of moving over the Great Lakes. It's still spreading some light snow in and around this upper level of circulation, but all of the white that you see here in the background, that is all snow on the ground. And so some places in through here have several. I mean, there's up to 2 feet of snow in the ground here. And I got a picture this morning from a guy in Minnesota that showed that he had 18 inches of snow on the ground. But a lot of the attention over the coming days, really the next 10 days, is going to go to the west to see what's coming out of the west as this jet stream pattern just continues to pummel the west coast. But before we do that, let's just take a quick look at some other metrics that give us an idea about recent precipitation. So this is my accumulated snowfall departure map. The normal time period is 2008 to 2022, so those years are used to compute the average, and so we're looking at the difference from average in inches. And again, we see that there have been few storm systems that have been able to bring snow pretty far south. So there's, coming out of the panhandles through Kansas, southern Iowa, Illinois, then here into New England, a major lack of big snow, except for the big lake effect snow events that we've seen. But very heavy snows, well above normal, up to about a foot or more above normal in parts of the Dakotas, Minnesota, northern Wisconsin. And then out in the west, right now, the snowpack just looks fantastic. But this needs to continue for the west to kind of ensure that by April 1, we've got decent moisture packed up into those mountains. So same map, this is just a little different view. This is actually total accumulated snow. And my color bar is a bit funky. I got to work on this again. But I tried to make a hard break at 20 inches, so you get into the blues there. So you can just kind of really see where the heavy snow is. But places that have seen less than that, the color gradient's not that strong. But we're just trying to identify where those big snowfall totals are. And you can see that in parts of the Sierra Nevada here in the Cascades. And parts of the Rockies have already gone off the color bar here of over 200 inches of snow. And so it's just really targeted, this area, and then the eastern side of the Great Lakes here. Just to keep tabs on the western snowpack situation, this is the latest we've got from NRCS and snow water equivalent. And again, it's kind of some of the same areas we've been talking about that we're going to watch carefully, like the Olympic Range here, and then getting down into parts of southern Colorado and New Mexico. Those seems to be the mountain chains which are still sitting somewhere below that, that 70% threshold that we really want to get above as we go forward. But certainly from California, Nevada, and Utah, big time snow, and then we're still well above average here throughout much of the rest of the mountain range. So I like to see that a lot. Another way to look at it is just to go back over the last 30 days in terms of total accumulated precipitation. And we can see that over the lower Mississippi River Basin, parts of the Mid-South, getting over to the Tennessee Valley, very heavy rainfall. But what also stands out so very easily here is just how dry parts of western Texas have been, New Mexico, southern Colorado, getting into this portion of Kansas. So this has just been an area where we've failed to see systems eject far enough to the south to really draw that moisture into this particular region to deliver the rainfall. What's important about this, and I'll show you this in a few moments, is what this has done to the Mississippi River. And of course, we need to take a look at the water health in the west as well. Same map, just different view. This is now percent of normal. Just another way to kind of see over the last 30 days kind of the haves and have-nots in terms of this precipitation pattern. So I want to look at this again, just in terms of kind of our major river systems. So we're going to go to water.weather.gov. This is the AHPS data, comes from the USGS river gauges. When you get there, you can get all of the river gauges all over the country. What I want to do, though, is I want to narrow down to those that are still showing up below floods, or excuse me, below low water levels. So we can see a few places down here in Florida, around Dallas, maybe this part of the Rio Grande. It's interesting just to see that the Mississippi River at Memphis is still showing low numbers, although it's projected to get up to about 16 feet deep here in the next 3 or 4 days, because all of the other gauges that are along the Mississippi are all reading above the low water marks, except for the one here. And I've gotten a few phone calls and pictures sent to me that just show that the river is up. We've got good flow into it. On the flip side of that, these are the gauges that are showing near or above flood stage. Now we can really see where all the heavy rains were lately. We can also see what's coming into the west coast here. So we did kind of a quick analysis of the Mississippi, understanding that there's been a lot of moisture, put over the top of that basin, the lower basin here lately. What I'd like to do is take you over to Lake Oroville, just kind of give you an idea in California about what the reservoirs are looking like. So just as a quick reminder, full pool is 900 feet. We're at right now 716 feet right here. Okay, we've got 2021 and 2022 on this. So the river reached a minimum back on, it was around December 1st, 2020 at about 658 feet. And since then, it has come up all the way to, as you can see here, 716. So the river is, the Lake Oroville is already risen, 60 feet or so since its lowest point, and we need to see these reservoirs continuing to fill. Now, of course, we've got a big system that's coming over the west, and here's number one that's curling up here toward British Columbia, and just as the sun is setting, you saw the second. In fact, there's just a whole parade of those 1, 2, 3s coming in over here. Look at this next one, though. All kind of born on the very strong jet stream level winds that we've been talking so much about for the last couple of weeks here. So big questions we need to ask at the end of this video is, do we continue to see this? Something important to understand is it is quite rare to see the jet stream do this when there's a La Niña. Again, this was one of our signals that maybe La Niña doesn't have a tight grip on what the jet stream level winds are doing in the mid-latitudes, even though all the signals are still there that La Niña is still present. But this particular pattern is one that's going to keep delivering these systems. And I don't know how else to show it to you than just to show you what the models are doing. So Weather Bell, great website here, going to give you that kind of northeastern Pacific view. And I'm just going to click play on this because I want you to see all of the systems over the next 10 days that are forecast to come into the west. You just see there's several of them all lined up. Now, what's important to know about this flow pattern is even though these are deep, large systems, as they come into the west, they are turning north, okay? These are not ejecting over the plains. It's a very difficult time over the next 7+ days of getting these to extend over into the mountains and then eventually here into the central United States. We need to see the consequences of that in just a few moments. But I would like to add it up for you, all right? So we're going to take our latest look at the 12Z European model, how much more precipitation we're expecting across the west given the systems that are all lined up there. So as I play this forward, this is very unlike last year. Last year, it had all shut down already. So we're already going to see an extra 15 days more than last year of moisture coming in, and I hope it's going to continue past that. We'll take a look at that in a few moments. But if you just kind of pause this here and take a look at some of the numbers into California, we're looking at 10 to some places up to 15 inches of liquid equivalent in addition to what has already fallen. So this is certainly going to be an ongoing flood problem throughout much of California. And this is going to be producing a tremendous amount of snow into the Sierra Nevada mountains here. Okay, from there, do you notice how all the heavy precip, though, is confined to the west? You don't see it here. And this is what I mean by these systems failing to get the short waves that are embedded in this flow to eject over the mountains. So our all hazards weather map right now this evening here on Thursday really just reflects what's going on in California. We do have a couple systems coming out, and there's one that's happening about 8 or 9 days from now that we're going to watch possibly go up the East Coast. Talk about that in a few moments. But a lot of the action we're going to be talking about here is going to be in the western United States in terms of new weather systems coming in. Okay, so why don't we take a quick look at the high-res models just to see how this system that's currently leaving is going to shape up. That's the one that's over the Great Lakes, and then what we'll see over the west. So let's keep our attention over here first. We saw throughout the day today, if I kind of rock back and forth around the upper level low, just a lot of snow squalls and some lake-enhanced snow there. And as this plays through into early Friday morning and going out there through Friday night and playing on forward. Still some more scattered snow showers coming off of the Great Lakes here into Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York. And about that time, there is a low that's going to come out of Oklahoma and Kansas, and that low is going to try to move its way over the Tennessee Valley. But it doesn't have a whole lot of upper level support to it. There's a large area of high pressure just to the north, keeping it pretty far to the south. So we could see some light wintry mix into this area, but overall just scattered rain to the south of this. That's kind of the overall picture we're getting out of this next system. And that, again, takes us out there to late on Saturday night. If we come back, we'll just watch the west now. I mean, it's just system after system coming into the west. Here we are. This is noon on Friday. The next front comes in through the I-5 corridor here. A little bit of light snow coming over Colorado. So this is getting into Friday night, Saturday morning. Playing it out there through Saturday afternoon and evening. And it's just going to be a barrage, just round after round after round of of precipitation, which we saw a few moments ago when we add it all up. It's just, it's a tremendous amount. Okay, from here, let's go over and talk about models real quick. As of late, the European model has had a pretty substantial advantage over the GFS, although the latest run from the European model really fell off from where it had been back down to closer where the GFS is now. So I just want to show you that there's been some model separation, and if you notice, skill scores have gone down as of late. And that might just be based upon kind of the nuances of that jet stream level flow that we're talking about right here. So let's go look at the GFS on the left, the European on the right, and just kind of get the timing of these next few systems. So we've already seen through Saturday, right? So let's just take it all the way through there and pick this up midday Sunday. In fact, let's go back just a hair. Right in through here on Saturday night to Sunday morning, we could see some embedded thunderstorms and some more heavy rain. And as we saw earlier, this is an area that's seen a lot of precipitation as of late. So anything that's additional here will cause some flooding. And we also mentioned that just on the northern side of this, there could be some very light snow accumulating right in through here. But as we play this forward, and that system tries to move its way toward the mid-Atlantic and New England, I just want to make a point that some of the models are picking up right around and north of the DC area the chances for some snow. It's a tricky forecast. We do have a couple of things set up that are helping a little bit higher pressure to the north. Helps to kind of pull in some cold air into this area. But this is going to be a hard forecast for this weekend to figure out what the precipitation type is going to be for that major metropolitan area. But that system then exits, and that low stays offshore. You can see both models. So here we are next Tuesday already, and we're already seeing, again, this is probably the third or fourth round coming through the west. Very, very heavy precipitation out of this. What I think a lot of folks will be watching will be, by next Wednesday, there's a low, it's in both models, that's trying to eject. This is the first one. It's going to take another 7 days to get here. But this will be the first one that tries to really form and deepen over the mountains after all that strong onshore flow comes into the west, so right here. So right now the models are taking that, and you can see they're both curling it up. There's could be some big snows. This is more than a week from now on the northern side of this. There's a lot of uncertainty here. We'll look at the ensembles in a second. But you notice that the models want to do something with it. They want this to really be one of those Miller B type storms that could come right over the Tennessee Valley into the Carolinas and then hook quickly to the north. And it's been resolved several times as of late in the models. So we're going to keep a very close eye on this, because outside of that, there's not a whole lot going on in terms of precip except for the west. So we can look at that a few different ways. Here is the chance of getting an inch of total precipitation, liquid equivalent where there's snow, over the next 10 days. And so really it's that next system that I showed you a few moments ago coming through here, and then the one that we're going to watch about 9 or 10 days from now come in and make the turn. It's not perfectly resolved in this animation yet. If I show you how much, what the probability is of getting 2 inches, let's see if that'll show up for us here. Nope, I think it switched me back models. Yeah, let's try that again. Let's go to the 12Z, take it out there to 10 days. There we go. So that's the probability of 2 inches. And here's the probability of 4. All your attention is going to come over here. Probability of 8. Very high. And we're looking at 70 to 90% chance in these areas of getting at least 8 inches of liquid equivalent. This isn't snow. And this is the probability of getting 15 out of this. So right here in coastal California, very, very wet. So that's the setup. Now, let's go talk about what we're expecting during that week 2 time period. So remember, the storm system could show up here and then make this turn. And we're seeing now from the GFS a broader area in through here of wetter conditions. And the GFS picked up on this first. The European was second, but it's now showing it. All right, this is week 2 precipitation anomalies. And what's going on here is this. This is starting off 1 week from today. Here's our first low we're going to watch. That one tries to go over to the East Coast. There it is. So by next Saturday, that trough, let's go back and forth. See it there over Oklahoma, finishes over North Carolina. It's got the right setup. So in the low levels, there'll be high pressure flowing the air like this direction. So you'll end up getting the cold air in place. The lows curling up like this, and this tends to take these systems right up the East Coast. Now, while all that's happening, there's weak ridging in the midsection of the country. This is another shot at warm air. This will be drier behind this, but there is certainly in the west just another trough lined up to come into the west. There's no shortage of these in the near term. So what I want to watch is, starting next Thursday, here's the European model ensemble cluster of lows from the different simulations. And you see that they move across Arkansas, come over to the Tennessee Valley, and then by next Friday night, getting into Saturday morning, we start to see them showing up here. It's good to have high pressure to the north. That sets us up with the right amount of cold air. I just kind of drew an arrow through where that high pressure could be. But that's the right setup to get a big East Coast system. So we have to watch this one carefully. Of course, it's more than a week from now, but it's showing up in the ensembles. And we just want to keep stressing that that'll be the next big system for the East. On the temperature side of it, I'm going to show you this from a global perspective, just because some major areas like North America, Europe, and China are going to be quite warm for much of the next 7 to 10 days. So I'm just kind of playing this forward. I'm looking for major Arctic outbreaks. I'm looking for anything to push out the warm air. If I take you all the way out there, there's day 5 through 10. Still quite mild in China, throughout much of the U.S. and Europe, but you're going to see some of the very cold air that's over Russia start to be displaced, and it's going to move toward China. But if the cold air is all here, it's not here. Okay, so certainly that's just where it's all lumped over the North Pole. It's over here in parts of Siberia. But I'm still watching this carefully. This could be setting us up for some sort of polar vortex disruption. I don't have the details on it just yet. I've got to keep looking to understand if the polar vortex disruption that could be happening later this month could get connected with the tropospheric motion and really send some cold air in. But at this point, taking out there 15 days, that's all the way to January 20th, we see very mild air across much of North America, while Europe stays mild as well. Okay, bigger picture things as we go forward in this forecast. First of all, this map, I know it's a bit confusing. This is time, and this is latitude, longitude. Now, what's interesting is this. There's rising motion over the Indian Ocean. And why that's so important is that's not very characteristic of when there is a La Niña. We still have a La Niña. Okay, we're watching these very carefully. See the trade winds here? But do you see what's starting to fail? This is the first thing we talked about, right? These strong westerly wind bursts by mid-month are backing off. And that's going to push the MJO around a lot and possibly give us some MJO that comes out of phase 6, 7, and 8 where it's lived for much of this winter so far and bring it here. Now, how high amplitude? I don't know. It's going to be tricky to figure out. But that means that the tropical signal is going to start to shift around, and I want to watch that carefully. We still have a La Niña in place, okay? But some of the newest data that's just out now really suggests that this is going to start to fade quickly as we get through this second half of winter. It'll be the contrast between these ocean temperatures associated with La Niña and these here between Hawaii and the Aleutian Islands associated with the PDO cycle, okay, the Pacific Decadal Oscillation, that will be critical for spring. So let's talk about this. Before we get there, we just need to look at Jan 15 to February 15. What's interesting is the models are blending it all together. There's the strong jet stream flow doing this, but there's appears to be La Niña-like behavior over the Ohio, Tennessee, and Mississippi River Valley. That's where systems like to eject like this. So now we see that much of the next month there are very few places across the United States that are forecast to be dry. And this is fitting the narrative we've kind of proposed as of late, suggesting that that drought monitor is going to continue to shrink. And I think the most important map to watch will be this one. What does that one look like by March and April? Have we remedied some of the dry places? And has the snow melt helped to this? Do more systems come through the Ohio and Tennessee and mid-Mississippi River Valley to kind of finish off the drier, deeper soil? If that all happens, we are really setting things up for what could be a big growing season next year. What's helping it is the forecast. This is the latest outlook from the European model on what the ocean temperatures in the middle of the Pacific are doing. We're specifically looking right here, okay? And they've got warming by March, INSO neutral. By May and June, possibly El Nino. We can even see it in the brand new data. This is ocean temperature anomalies. And as I play this forward, there's February, March, April. Watch this. That's April, May, June, July. So what, 5 of the last European model runs, the long ones, have all done this. What'll be very interesting is how much warm water they've kept here in the North Pacific. And this is why I'm telling you this. This warm water in the North Pacific here is a dry signal for the plains and Midwest. This warm water that is here, associated with El Nino, is a wet signal for the Midwest. Which one dominates the flow is still something we're trying to assess and figure out. But I would like to take you in and show you what the models are doing. Let's go down here and look at precipitation. We'll do this kind of in a seasonal fashion. And I'll take you back to what we think January, February, March is going to look like. This is part of that drought-busting winter we've been talking about. As we go from January, February, March to February, March, and April, still quite active here where we've been thinking it will be. But the models for January, February, March, and April have gone, it just feels like they went back to their old ways. That's La Niña to the T. I don't get it. I don't think it's going to show up like this. I think La Niña is fading too fast. And as a result, I don't think this is what spring's going to look like. This is March, April, May. I could buy the wetter conditions here. That makes sense. I think it's going to be wetter into California. I think it's going to be wetter into the Four Corners. I think it's going to be wetter here into the plains. And the big reason for that is when La Niñas fade, we get that. I think it's going to be a tight spring. I wouldn't be fooled by these dry strips in through here. If we go out there to April, May, June, I don't know, let's go all the way May, June, July. See how the models really got this all jumbled up? I think there's just enormous spread in the ensemble, and we're not yet to the spring barrier on predicting what the La Niña is going to do and how quickly the El Nino conditions are going to come out. And so we need to take all of this with a big grain of salt. I'll just tell you this. I buy that. That's January, February, March. That makes sense to me right now. Okay? From here, I would like to show you South America. And what's interesting is the newest model runs for the safrinha crop are no longer as dry as they were here in Brazil's northern growing areas. And that switch is significant because should this manifest itself, that would mean a big safrinha crop. It could be drier in southern Brazil, according to the model, maybe still in Argentina. But I don't know. I'm going to do this, okay? I don't trust it yet. I've got to put more thought into this to see if I can make some sense out of it. But this just came out this evening, so I'm seeing it the first time you're seeing it right here, all right? So speaking of South America, let's just go talk about what we do know. I'm going to add up for you the precipitation in the European model here over the next 10 days. As I play this out, sorry, it's a little skippy here. There we go. This is now getting out through this weekend and playing all the way out into next week. You can see the hole as clear as I can. If I go out another week in total, we don't see much precipitation at all for Argentina, Uruguay, southern Brazil. It's all heavy into the north. Harvest progress is moving along in Mato Grosso, but there's some places in through here that are going to pick up. This would be, we're looking at 4 to 8 inches of rainfall in through this corridor. 8 inches over here in like Minas Gerais, parts of Goiás, where they went to harvest as well. The driest conditions are down in Argentina. The models want to, not this coming weekend, but the following weekend, bring in rain. That's too far out for an operational model to hammer this down. So we'll have to watch to see if that frontal boundary does show up. What I can tell you, though, is that during this time period, that's going to be very dry over the next 10 days. It's going to be quite warm as well. So temperatures here showing 2 to 5 degrees Celsius above normal, could be hotter than that. And I think that's just going to continue to add stress into Argentina while Brazil just hammers away on the rain and gets the harvest going. So that's kind of your quick update on South America. I appreciate your extra attention tonight. We'll talk again on Friday morning for those of you that get the morning reports. And hope you all have a good rest of your week. Thanks.